Haken, what was the total miles?
So 14,000 miles, give or take. I think when I finished in Singapore, it was like, it actually kind of annoyed me. It was 13,995. But then I spent a few days riding around. So it's over 14,000. I don't know the exact total.
Welcome to Brainstoke. I'm Tom Telford here with JT. This is a family affair today.
It is.
It's awesome. I'm excited to be back in studio. First off, thank you, Gardner Brown, Cornerstone Advisors. Awesome people. Highly ironic that Gardner is the sponsor with Cornerstone in this show because we've got a friend of the foe in-house today. So, yeah, thank you, Gardner. Also, Levo, a mind care company. Spent a little bit of time with Levo the last couple days, and Levo continues to shine, in the state of Utah. Our recent emphasis with our team at Levo is illness, wellness, performance. And we're going to talk about the whole spectrum of mental health care, those three stages today, as we dive in with our guests. But thank you, Levo. Also, a great thank you and shout out to Envy, another little verbal Easter egg. The reveal is coming, of this custom Envy melee that we created, which will be cool. We'll talk a little bit about that today, what our favorite carbon fiber is from our guest, and dive into a little bit of gear. But, to all of those who listen to Brainstoke, our listeners, followers, happy holidays. We wish you the best, happy and healthy and safe, time of year. We have a number of friends who are out there in the world serving in the military, serving LDS missions, or just serving humans. That is our fourth S at Brainstoke. So when we think about the 5 S's, the fourth is serve. No better way to get some oxytocin, the O in the dose in your life is to love and lift other people. And this is the time of year to do it. So get out there and serve. Lastly, Preston's out today, but JT, who is really the brains, the brawn, everything behind Brainstoke as a producer. Thank you, JT Telford, for all you've done this year to boost Brainstoke and to grow it. And it's fun to have him in the chair. In the side, I'm going to be the sidecar today. You be the driver.
I can't wait. Let's go. Let's get it.
Anyway, welcome to our listeners. It'll be fun today to end the year off with a true bang. This is a big achievement we're going to talk through today. So JT, why don't you, introduce our guest and tee it up.
Please. Our guest today is I would say personal hero of mine, also just a good freaking kid. And if you've followed along with his journey also, I've been fairly dedicated in researching and also just being a fan of his.
Stalking, just say it.
Yeah, stalking for sure.
You're man stalking.
Yes.
Okay.
No, Haken Anderson is our guest today. And kind of introduce yourself. I will introduce some of your accolades if I can.
Go for it.
First off, he did something that I've talked about doing for since I was 12 years old, which was he rode his bike from his house to Las Vegas, which we have talked about doing multiple times. Never pulled the trigger because we're a bunch of wusses. And he did it on a whim to prepare for his other journey. Haken is a stud. He rides Nika, and that was kind of his, I don't know, what would you say it is? Your hobby to ride mountain bikes?
Yeah, totally. It was a extra adventure for me. Yeah,
exactly. So he kills it. He kills it at Nika, but he just barely rode, or just barely back, and will now start school here soon. But is back from his trip riding from Morocco to Singapore. That's all you need to say. How many countries?
35 plus a bonus while I was waiting for my flight. Yeah.
35 plus a bonus countries.
Just so our listeners know, we're not talking about Morocco to Singapore in the casinos in Vegas that's about 100 yards long. These are the actual countries in the globe.
Yes.
You know, this is legit. So, wow.
An incredible achievement. Welcome, Haken.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Your story is one that I've followed for a while. Tom has followed for a while. A good friend and part of Brainstoke, Kevin, has introduced me a little bit to your story, and now I've just become obsessed with it. Tell us a little bit about what started your love for cycling. We talk a lot about at Brainstoke about the mental health aspect of getting out. The bike has been our coping mechanism. Tell us how that started for you.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, I was about 13 years old at the time, and I didn't really get out much, like outdoors, and everybody was trapped inside. So my dad actually bought a road bike, a Trek Madone, with my money that I had saved up. Luckily, I liked it, so it worked out. But yeah, haven't looked back since. So I've been riding for about 5 years. I used to live in Illinois. Then I spent a year in Thailand in 2023 to 24, and then my family moved here while I was away. So during my senior year, I rode NICA for Davis High School, and after I graduated, I did this.
Heck yeah.
So just for listeners, real quick, the term NICA has been referenced a couple times, and we always want to give some color or commentary to just some of the terms we often use on here that people are like, what the? NICA stands for the National Interscholastic Cycling Association. And in the state of Utah, NICA Utah has over 7,500 high school cyclists who take part in racing mountain bikes, and that is the largest sport in Utah. Although football teams are huge and it's big, culturally, Utah has the largest league in the United States for high school cycling, and it's an incredibly strong program. Haken happens to be on the Davis High team, and they're one of the strongest teams, and they have some incredible coaches, which, we want to dive into with you. But,
For sure.
But Haken, you're 18 right now. You just described a little bit about, this massive journey on a bicycle, but go back, if you don't mind, and just tell us a little bit more about family culture, because it sounds like, one, you saved money, two, your dad pillaged the account and bought you a bike. So is this a shaming tactic? Like, why? Tell us about your parents, your family a little bit, and then why, what happened there with the bike transaction?
Yeah, I mean, my parents are both very active. They haven't always been, but for the past decade or so, they both run a lot. My dad bikes, my mom a little too, and they've always encouraged us to also be pretty active. We're not great at like ball sports. I did a little baseball, tried tennis, things like that, and I just don't have the coordination for it. But for cycling, you don't really need that. So we've been doing that for a while. We talked about how big the teams are around here. I have 2 younger siblings that are also on the team, and I think I have 6 younger siblings, and I'm assuming probably all of them will be on the team at some point. We have so many bikes in our garage. It's kind of hard to get around, actually.
So it is family culture.
Totally.
Okay.
In terms of the bike transaction, yeah, I saved up a little money. My parents had me during the pandemic. My mom taught me how to sew masks. And so I made a little money from selling those and split it with my mom, and that's how I had the cash. I think my dad assumed that, or like he must have known that I would have enjoyed it, because he wouldn't have done it if like I was going to hate it. But he also knew I wasn't going to pull the trigger myself to get like a nice, proper bike, which is what I needed to actually feel motivated to ride all the time. So I'm grateful for him to kind of just shove me in that direction and get me going.
So I love this endorsement right now. We got to say this. We got to like pause and double click on this, because a good friend of mine, Cam Costeller, for years, we have had this saying, we will just send each other a text that says NGSE. And what that really means between the two of us is I just made a big purchase. NGSE stands for New Gear Solves Everything, you know? And I love your endorsement of that, right? Just invest in the thing that is going to drive motivation.
Totally.
So you knew that at the time when the Trek Madone arrived, you're like, whoa.
I mean, honestly, at first I think I was a little mad, but then I started writing and got on Strava. That's actually, I'm big on, I really like maps. That's part of what I like about, other countries and this trip in general was being able to track myself on a map. So when I got on Strava and I was able to see every ride, it was just so satisfying to me. And so after that, it's like, okay, yeah, this is good. And yeah, I mean, even I think it was my second week with a bike, my second weekend, there was an ultra endurance event in my town in Illinois, and I rode 75 miles. So yeah, I've just always really enjoyed riding long, and yeah, being out there for a while.
Say more about the rewards, because a lot of people, whether they know or don't know what Strava is an app that allows you to get on the app, hit record, and whether you're biking, running, swimming, rock climbing, whatever, Strava will record that activity, distance, time, speed, those things. And to be honest, there's a lot of people who are addicted to Strava.
Yeah.
Because of the positive reinforcement and oxytocin and dopamine that you get, not just from doing the activity that you recorded, but going back and looking at it. You said you like maps.
Yeah.
What is it about that? Is it just seeing what you did and accomplished and you're like, oh, that felt really good, and I'm glad I have a record of it?
Yeah, I think that's definitely what it is, because I have a record of basically every ride I've ever done since I've started cycling. So I can go back and see and kind of relive memories. Like throughout my trip, I basically use Strava as a personal journal. Like I always told people follow me on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. But like if you actually want to see what's going on, follow me on Strava, because that's where I keep it real. I do it day by day. I definitely at different points have like tried to make sure that Strava isn't the only reason I'm writing, because that is a thing. Like you don't want that to be.
Yeah, totally. There's a saying, if you didn't record it on Strava, it didn't happen.
Yeah, and like if my computer didn't save my ride or something, like I'll be mad about that for a little bit. I'll be frustrated.
Or KOM hunting or.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's nice to have something that like I can look back on and enjoy it. Because the thing about cycling that me and my dad always say is a lot of the time it's type 2 fun. It's fun after the fact. Type 1 fun, it's like fun while you're doing it. And there's definitely a lot of that in cycling too. But when it's really hard, when you're just going for hours and hours and hours, it's not always fun in the moment. But when you're looking back on it, you're like, man, that was fun. And Strava is one of the ways that I'm able to look back on it.
Yeah.
It's a really positive relationship I think you have with, I don't know that we've ever talked about we definitely talk about the pain cave, so to speak, of like the darkest points of your ride or like the hardest points of your ride. It's interesting to be in that space and then look back and be like, oh, that is fun. That is why I do it. Yeah. Almost like this cycle of motivation. I think that's really interesting.
You talked about this event that you did, 75 miles in your hometown. When did you start to recognize there was something about the accomplishment of distance? Because you're not talking about like, oh, I went out for a 45-minute ride and I went fast and it was 45 minutes. I mean, you're talking about length, 75 miles.
Yeah. I mean, I will do my fair share of, like 20-mile rides, 30-mile rides. But yeah, if I have time for it, I almost feel like I'm wasting a good day if I'm not out there for, several hours. And sometimes that probably annoys my parents a little bit. They need me home to do, I don't know, yard work or something, and I'm out on my bike. But yeah, there's just something more satisfying about, actually going someplace. My parents run a lot, but what I tell them is running's, it's good, and you can get more bang for your buck, I feel like, in terms of fitness a lot of the time, just because it's higher intensity the whole time. Running, to me, feels like the hardest part of cycling, but the entire time. maybe I just need to run more. But one of the things I like about cycling as compared to running is you actually get to go someplace and you can go further. You can see more places. So, in Illinois, I lived kind of close to the Indiana border, but not super close. And so one day it's like, okay, I'll just go right over there, like right to Indiana. And there's just so many cool places you get to see when you decide to like really branch out from your, regular hometown roads.
It's awesome.
When you decide to ride over 100 miles, just do a century, just light.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that. Just the other day, you were describing that. I was talking to a friend that I've gotten to know this last, several months. His name's Dave Eldridge. He runs, the University of Utah's Huntsman Mental Health Institute. And I don't know Dave's age, but he's probably 55-ish, And just in passing, I said, "How was your ride this weekend?" He loves to ride bikes. And he's like, "Oh, I rode here and there." And I'm like, "Dave, how far did you go on Saturday?" He's like, "Well, I started off, I was just going to go for like 20 miles, but then I just thought, hey, it's a beautiful day." I mean, he went over 100 miles just, just because. Do you find yourself in that mindset at times, just, hey, I'm feeling good, I might as well just stay out here, I'm enjoying this?
Yeah, it does. That does definitely happen. It is harder when that happens, though, because one thing I've really noticed is the difficulty of a ride often depends on what you're expecting to do. So if you're going into a ride expecting to do 100 miles, you're doing 100 miles and like you're at 50, you're like, okay, I'm halfway, and you just keep going. But if you start expecting to do 20 and then end up doing 100, that can feel like a lot harder sometimes. But totally, I mean, I will call audibles and keep riding. Just a couple, maybe last week, I was only going to ride like 60 miles, but the sun was still up. It was a nice day, and I was like, what the heck? I'll just ride, down to the airport or something and back and get a century, because why not? So yeah, that definitely does happen. But yeah, the expectation aspect definitely can make it a little more difficult.
Yeah, totally. So we got to get to the root cause before we go forward and talk about, what you've been up to recently. But why do you do this?
Just like in general, cycling.
Yeah, I mean, when you go real introspective, take a day out of, this incredible trip that you're going to talk about. But what is it in you, do you believe? I mean, you're 18 years old, and yet you probably have done more self-discovery in the last several months than people in their 50s have ever done. Just because of the time spent by yourself, reflecting, suffering. We often talk about this, that, there's something about the bike for us, and there's something in the suffer that you start to understand who you are, your character. Mm-hmm. Why? Why, Haken? What is it in you at 18 years old that has you doing and thinking about these types of things?
Yeah, I mean, when I stay in one place, just kind of, laying around for too long, I get pretty restless. And so just like forcing myself to get out there, even when I don't necessarily feel like it, it's really rewarding. In terms of this trip, people ask me all the time, like, why are you doing this? What caused you to do this? And honestly, I never have like a great, perfect, like trimmed answer, because it's just something that seemed exciting to me. And I was like, what could happen? I don't even know. I might as well go and figure out and go try for myself. It's obviously something I enjoy. I enjoy the cycling aspect because I like to push myself, and to be able to push myself every day and basically be able to ride all day, every day for like months and months. That sounded really appealing. But I also like to visit new places, see new cultures, meet new people. And I feel like being on a bike by yourself in a new place is a great way to do that. So that's definitely part of my motivation for it. And, part of it's a little bit of, I have a lot of, big decisions in my life coming up, and, it's kind of nice to just take a step back and be like, okay, what do I really want? Just like, because once you, especially in Utah, it's very,
school, job.
Exactly.
Family.
Or like even a mission, whatever, like it's very clear cut what you're going to do. And for me, I was kind of like, well, I don't want to just get into the rhythm of it and then it's kind of hard to look back. So take a break before and then see what happens after.
But
I don't know if it's that much of a break.
I
but-
got to take you back because what you just described, you know, we will talk often, but you're inflicted with the sickness. And the sickness is, you know, feeling good to you means you have to do something hard that hurts.
Mhm.
So say more about that. Why do you suffer with it needs to hurt in order for me to be fulfilled?
I mean, yeah, that's really, I mean, not to get like too corny about it or whatever, but that's how you grow. I mean, if you don't do hard things, that's something that's definitely in my family culture as well. Like my parents, if there's a choice between like an easy thing and a hard thing, like they've always encouraged us to do the hard thing because that's where you really get growth. You know, doing a 20-mile ride after school, that's great and all, but like it's not as satisfying. If you haven't really pushed yourself, if you're doing something you could just do on any given day, you know, it's not really pushing yourself. And you have less of a sense of accomplishment from that. And so that's definitely a reason for it. The other thing, you know, going hard, especially with racing and stuff, that's a different kind of intensity compared to like, you know, ultra endurance stuff. But I feel like the reward's even more immediate when, you know, you finish a race, just like the relief you have and like the happiness, regardless of whether it went well, just like the feeling of having pushed yourself is really, really addicting, I feel like.
That's something really interesting in NICA as a NICA rider and having like done it. There are very few things I think I have now proposed to my fiance that was extremely anxiety inducing.
For
Like
sure.
a massive flood to my nervous system.
Yeah.
Proposing like before finals, like or before like a college final, and being in a NICA starting shoot.
Yep.
Or like the top anxiety levels that I've ever had. But also on the other side of that, the moment in a NICA race or probably in any racing, cyclocross race, whatever, like or doing P2P, like the moment where I knew I got this. Like being at like halfway through a race or the being at the top of like Columbine in like P2P or like at the top of, or not Columbine, excuse me, at the top of like Park City and being like, I got this.
Yeah.
Like I'm in this. Like not that I could win or something like that, but like I'm over the hump, so to speak.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that feeling was like in some of your rides, especially like what we're gonna like talk about, like through like halfway through Europe. I imagine you kind of get that feeling of like, I got this. Like,
Yeah.
I can do this. Like that's a really cool feeling of this. Like again, like and then being done, that elation. Like I can't imagine that. It's really cool.
No, and I feel like that's the key is to get past the hump, because if you let like your nervousness decide what you will or won't do, then most of the time you won't end up doing anything. And I feel like a lot of things, if not most things worth doing, you know, you'll be a little bit nervous for because they mean a lot. There's actually something at stake. And so, yeah, just pushing yourself over the hump, jumping into the unknown is the key.
How did you do that? Take us right there now, because I think that's a great way to just segue into how did you hatch this plan, this big trip, you know, that you wanted to take on?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of had some sort of idea of doing something like this for probably a few years now, but I never really thought I'd be able to do it. Just because, you know, it's hard to take off 6 months. Like that's a significant amount of time. And I didn't even really decide to go on this trip until about 2 months before. I was planning on doing some different things with school, with the U.S. Military Academy, and I found out I had an eye disease that needed to be treated. And so I wasn't able to go last year. And I found out about that like in April, and then I left in June. So literally as soon as I found out I couldn't go, I was like, all right, I'm just doing this. I'm not even going to think about it. I just decided then and there, I'm doing this. To be honest, I probably didn't put as much like planning into it as I should have. I mean, I got some gear. I bought my plane tickets and whatever. But I
Are
kind
you
of
saying that this adventure was planned as a 17-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, basically.
sense.
But honestly, I feel like that was the way to do it because I feel like something like this is really easy to over plan, and having the flexibility to just kind of figure it out as I went was maybe the best aspect of it, to be honest. Because
How did you find? I mean, this is kind of a niche topic in what we're talking about right now, but how did you find the exact segment of Morocco to Singapore and being the youngest person to do that? Like, what is that on Strava as a achievable segment? How did you find out about the records of that?
Yeah, so I like to say that I'm the youngest person who's ridden from Morocco to Singapore.
I would argue you are.
I think so. It's an unverifiable claim. I haven't found anybody else. I assume I'm probably the youngest. I know several people, even just that I've talked to, who have ridden from like Portugal to Singapore or Spain to Singapore.
Okay.
And I'm the youngest among those for sure. I don't know. My starting place was kind of random, to be honest. I wanted to start maybe like southern Spain, Gibraltar, kind of there, and it was the same price to just fly to Morocco. So I was like, why not add another continent while I'm at it?
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here anyway, you know. So it was kind of random, but I figured I'm probably the youngest, so I like to make that claim.
I feel like that's pretty arguable. I don't know.
Yeah.
In looking that up on
I'm
Google
just
or
picturing him like in school, Davis darts, teachers up there, lecturing on math, and he's just like World Wide Web, like
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was stressful.
go across continents on my bicycle. I mean, go a little more into how you hatched the plan. I mean, was it really just daydreaming up like, hey, this would be cool to do, and why there versus right across the U.S. or
Or go to Russia
Right.
in the winter.
Oh my gosh. I really don't know like how much thought I put into it, to be honest. For Morocco, I was like, okay, might as well go there. But for Singapore, it's basically just as far as you can go without crossing an ocean. Like that's where Asia ends, basically. And yeah, I mean, I could have done the U.S. or something, but I really do like other countries. I mean, that's why I went on an exchange program in Thailand, for instance. Like, I just really like to get out there. I love the U.S. too, and I'd love to ride across it at some point, but just like the diversity I knew I would encounter going through, 35 countries, that sounded really appealing to me. And it didn't seem too logistically challenging, like, I don't know, riding around Africa or something that could be a little bit more difficult, I think. So yeah, I'm not sure how much thought I put into that. I kind of just decided to go for it, and that's what I did. I've kind of had the idea for a couple of years, but I never really decided to do it until right before.
So big vision guy, big dreamer guy, adventure, love the thought of that. When you were daydreaming it up or starting to kind of conjure this, idea in your mind, was it always you yourself? Was it, hey, I need to get a team around me? My parents, right? It's one thing to go and do it, but I think a lot of people would land at, I need these number of people or these things to be involved to do it. How was your thoughts that way?
I mean, I would have loved to ride with somebody. I tried to convince, some of my Davis friends to maybe come out with me, but they weren't as crazy, I suppose. I mean, in terms of the support and everything, my parents were a little skeptical. They're like, all right, Haken, yeah, you talk about crazy things all the time. But they were never going to stop me. And as soon as they saw I was serious, they were like, okay, I guess, you're serious about it. And I saved up my own money from, working around the school year. And so I was mostly self-supported. I figured if I'm going to be able to do this, I can't rely too much on other people because I'll be on the other side of the world. I'll need to be able to figure things out myself. but definitely it was nice to have, the support of family and friends, because, that wouldn't, that would have been a lot harder without it.
Do you, sorry to get into this whole thing, do you, in terms of being self-supported, do you have a cemetery count of how many cemeteries that you camp next to?
It's at least 3.
Yeah. I was like, it's one thing to like, and the bridge sleep count, I imagine.
Yeah.
Sleeping under bridges and stuff. I love that you're the self-proclaimed hobo. That was super funny.
Cemeteries are really nice, actually, because nobody bothers you.
Yeah, that's right.
Nobody's
Just
coming
the
out there.
ghosts.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Ghosts of many wars fought upon the ground. Oh, yeah.
It's such a fascinating concept, to think through. And forgive me, I'm going to sound like the old guy, but at my age, to think of doing that at your age, it's remarkable. I mean, it's pretty wild. So at what point, you talked about your parents weren't going to stop me. What is it about the process where they didn't? I mean, was it just like you're too bullheaded, or that you actually came up with a plan that was like doable?
Yeah, I mean, when I first found out that like I wouldn't be going to West Point this year, I told my dad then and there, I was like, okay, so I'm doing the trip. He's like, well, okay, if you're gonna do this, like, make a route, send it to me. Let's like make sure you're actually thinking this through all the way. And so I did that, and he's like, all right, I mean, I guess if you're gonna do it, you can do it. And so yeah, I mean, sorry, what was the question again?
It's all good.
Is your dad military?
He's
Or-
not
oh,
actually. Yeah.
What was your motivation for military-wise?
Honestly, it's a really good opportunity. I wasn't even really thinking about it before my senior year, and then I had some people, kind of close to me. I know some people at West Point that have taught there, and yeah, it's just it's an interesting place because it's very academically rigorous, but it's also very physically rigorous. So it's really, honestly, it'll be difficult for me if I do end up going, just because I'm not as much of like a regimented person, and you kind of have to develop that skill. So I think there would be a lot of growth there.
Yeah. I would argue the opposite for you. I mean, after seeing your, like, it takes one thing. I mean, talk about West Point. You say, I'm not that regimented. You are that disciplined, though. And I think those are two different words, but in the same sense for you, to get up every day and have the mental fortitude to be like, yeah, I'm going to go ride 100 miles today. Or the more thing of like, yeah, this hurts, but I'm going to do whatever, 5 miles more. I'm exhausted, 5 more miles to get my century on Strava. Just
Right.
because, like,
Yeah.
that's the type of mental fortitude I think you need. And I think that's evident throughout your whole trip, throughout your documentation, kind of what you've told us now is what to you in those hard moments, right? And when it hurts, when you lose, I mean, please tell us more about this story of how you lose all your gearing besides 2. Besides, like, how in that moment do you say, I got this? Besides, like, hey, I have to get to the next town. What do you say? Do you self-talk in those moments? Is it a self-dialogue, or is it just, hey, I'm in a crappy spot, I got to get out of this?
I mean, when my shifting cable in the Czech Republic snapped, and so I had no rear shifting, and it was a Sunday as well, or maybe it was even a Saturday night, and so the shops would be closed the next day, and they were already closed there, so I had no options really. The first thing I did was I found some locals and asked for some help. I'm never afraid to ask for help from people if they're willing to offer it. So that was my first step, but we weren't able to get anything figured out. So yeah, I just decided, well, I don't really have a choice. I guess I'm just gonna ride with no gears. And so yeah, I rode to Vienna from there. It was about 100 miles. And honestly, it's just, if there's anything I've learned about this trip or through this trip, is that if you're forced to do something, more often than not, you're able to find a way to do it. It might not be ideal what the solution you come up with, but you'll be able to push yourself, and you'll be able to adapt. And so that's why I'm not too worried about, going military or anything, because I've learned that I can adapt to new situations pretty easily. and just kind of figure things out. And that's a skill that you only really learn by putting yourself in those situations.
100%.
Start the trip for us. I'm curious, just, when you went to Morocco and you began, just take us to those, to the beginning point. What does it look like flying in? What does it look like? Did you stay in a hotel? Did you have a last supper? Right? I mean, what do you do?
So I actually was pretty fortunate coming into Morocco. My good friend Jason Woodland that he actually has some contacts in Casablanca, a really kind family there.
Of course he does.
Yeah, of course. He knows everybody. So he put me in contact with them, and they actually were kind enough to, I was just planning on like camping that night, and they got me a hotel room, which was like so kind. And they even took me to like their workshop, helped me put together all my stuff, took me around town for a day while I was, starting to get set up. And then the next morning when I actually started, which was actually my 18th birthday. So I started on my 18th birthday, arrived when I was 17. And I hadn't really like fully tested all my gear. I wasn't 100% sure it fit, which maybe a critical oversight. It took me a few hours longer than I expected to like actually get everything to fit on the bike. Because I just didn't even know what I was doing. I had all the bags and whatnot, but I just didn't have the system down for it yet. So 5 miles in the middle of Casablanca on like a busy street, like my tent fell off my bike. It just in the middle of the road. So I was like, okay, we're off to a great start here. But then as the days went on, I just kind of figured out ways to make everything fit and just developed a system for it. And you just adapt. That's really what it comes down to.
I love that. I geek out on systems thinking and systems theory, and, you just have to fail fast, right? I mean, you just have to fail by doing and then adapt.
And I mean, even if I were to spend hours and hours, honing down my gear and my setup and everything, chances are I would have had to change it anyway because it wasn't, fully practical or whatever. You kind of just have to start writing and see what works and work back from there. And so, yeah, like I said, a lack of planning, but maybe that was a bit of an asset because I could just make it up as I went.
Yeah. I just love that mindset at that age. I mean, it's just like, it's how an 18-year-old would think on crack. Just I'm going to figure it out. I'm just out here. Were you scared? Like the night before? I mean, to a degree, you go public. A lot of people, parents, hey, I'm doing this thing. A lot of people know you're going. You begin. Was there a bit of fear just like, now I got to follow through on this deal?
Oh, totally. Yeah. The first night, like laying in bed, I didn't even have my bike set up. I was like, this is going to be really interesting. And yeah, I definitely was wondering at that point, like, will I be able to do this? Will I even want to keep doing this at a certain point? Like, will I lose interest and be like, what am I even doing here? And yeah, lots of people knew I was going and they all thought I was crazy. And they're like, oh, I mean, nobody was like saying, you're not going to be able to do that. But like, you can tell that people are
you
like,
sense
okay.
the skepticism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, there's a sense of like, I want to prove people wrong. Like I can do it. But I've never done this before. I don't know if I can do it. I think I probably can, but we'll find out. And even when I was getting towards the end of the trip, just looking back on it and like looking through pictures at different points on the ride and realizing how far I still had to go at that point, I was like, holy crap, how did I do that? I still had so much. I didn't even know it was coming, and it was a lot that was still coming. And so I think I just had to take it day by day, piece by piece, because if I looked at the whole picture all at once, it was really overwhelming.
Say more about that, because I think that you doing this in your age demographic, this is an enormous lesson that I wish I had your wisdom at your age, about how do you eat an elephant? We're talking about Morocco to Singapore on a bike.
We're talking about 10 elephants.
Yeah. And yet it may be, the kid your age who's just like, I'm horrible in school, to enroll in a 4-year degree at a higher, like that's their elephant. That's their Morocco to Singapore, right? I mean, serving an LDS mission or the military you're talking about.
Totally.
Like these are massive elephants, in people's lives. And what you just said, I think, is the key. So talk about the value mentally of I don't need to ride to Singapore today.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ride to the top of that hill, or make sure my tent doesn't fall off the bike. I'm going to buy little pieces at a time. So say more about that.
I feel like the key is to obviously break it up into smaller pieces, because if you look at the whole picture, it'll be way too much. But to also find joy in those little pieces. Like, I mean, I've said to my dad, like, I think technically this is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. But if I look at any individual like day or anything, I feel like I've probably done harder things at other points in my life. But like put together, it ended up being something great. And yeah, just finding enjoyment in every single day, finding something new. That was the best thing about this trip, was I never actually did get bored of riding. I was worried I might. But because I was in a new place every day, seeing new things, I always felt the motivation to keep going. And yeah, I think with that applies to anything in life. If you start to get maybe too stagnant, then things can start to get a little bit more difficult. So it's good to maybe spice things up a little bit and add some, flavor to each section. And then, the parts can actually be enjoyable as they become the whole.
I could drop the mic right now, but I'm not going to, because I want to go back and I'm just picturing this lesson, and this is enormous. This is so big. I hear kids, I mentor college students of your age and older, and I see online all the time. And there's this sense that people will say, well, I don't want to take that job because I don't know if I'll be passionate about it, or I'll get bored in it, or I don't want to choose that degree, or study this, or frankly, I don't know if I want to marry her or marry him because I could get bored. And what you're talking about is so huge. Just start, commit to it. And then as time goes on, what you just said was, I thought I was going to get bored of riding, but because I was somewhere new, doing the thing, right? The landscape changed and it kept the bike okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is a great lesson about relationships and school and work and all of those things. Those are all vehicles of just moving forward in life. Right. I mean, people want the dream job. No, just the dream job is just a vehicle to get through life to achieve your dream.
Yeah.
The job is not the dream. It's just a vehicle to achieve dreams. So, man, you're wise. Like there's so much there that you just described at 18 that I really want people to grab onto, because there's a lot there.
And I mean, even to get to, the dream job or whatever, you have to start somewhere, and you kind of just have to take a leap. Like maybe it's not the ideal scenario, but it's better than nothing, most of the time. So you just kind of have to get started.
Yeah.
We say all the time, 80% perfect is better than 0% done.
Totally. Yeah.
And like, I think a lot of time we talked about like you being a perfectionist. I feel the same way of some projects where I'm like, this is not exactly how I want it to look. And I feel there's a fear of embarrassment maybe, or a fear of insecurity and like putting something out that is not exactly what I want it to look like. And sometimes you just have to lick the stamp and send it, and no one really cares about the 20%. That last 20% perfect was in your head. And it's perfect because it's out and it's sharing a message that is important. So
it's awesome.
And something I was worried about also with the trip, with being a perfectionist, like when I rode from Salt Lake to Vegas, I got 4 flat tires on the trip and I ran out of tubes. So I had to hitchhike from like around St. George to Mesquite because there were no shops, and I had to go just figure it out.
That's a tough stretch, man.
Yeah. I basically skipped all of the Arizona section. And that really bothered me because I wanted to ride the whole way.
Of course you did.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'm
Didn't
very
count,
perfectionistic
Haken.
about it.
Yeah, of course.
And so I was worried going into the trip, like, what if something like that happens? What if I have to skip a section? Or like, I knew there were some parts in China where like you weren't necessarily allowed to ride, and like the police would have to, take you in their car to the next town or something. And I didn't know where those places were. And I was like, what's the point of even doing it if I can't ride the whole way? And I just kind of had to remind myself, like, okay, yeah, that's part of the goal, but like, I'm really here to, push myself every day and to see new places. And I'm still going to be able to do that even if I'm not able to ride, every single section. And so, yeah, I mean, if I was so perfectionistic that I'm like, what's the point? I'm not even going to do it anyway. I would have missed out on so many cool experiences from, just being willing to put up with not perfection.
Yeah.
I think a part of that just you can see in your journey are the days that you take off to do touristy things, or like if you were truly rigorous about your route, you would get off the bike, hop in your tent and sleep. And yet you do these things like showing off the scenery or showing off certain things, or like the tower. Like that's not something that was a part of your route, or like the Rock of Gibraltar. Like there's not stuff that's like on the direct route that you're trying to go, but it gives spice, it gives content. Not that you're about the content, but a sense of like, this is an experience. Yeah. That was the basis, the genesis of your idea was the experience, rather than like, I'm going to just put miles down, because you might as well do it on a trainer then and look at like vistas on your TV screen, right? It's about the experience.
Totally. And you probably saw in one of my videos, I climbed Mont Ventoux in France, and literally that morning, I wasn't planning on climbing Mont Ventoux. I was just texting my dad. I was like, oh, I just realized like Mont Ventoux right there. But I don't think I'll do it because it adds like 5,000 feet of elevation that doesn't even get me further up the Alps. Like I go up and I go back down and I'll have to reclimb all that elevation anyway. And my dad was just like, well, I mean, why not do it? You're there anyway.
As he's chilling on the couch
yeah,
watching
exactly.
TV. Like,
well, he did that. He did that a few times. Every time I like was like, should I do it or should I not? He was always, oh, do the harder thing, because why not? You only live once, so you might as well go do it. And so I did, and it was really cool. Even with all my bags on that steep climb. I mean, it was a pretty cool place to be. And the Tour de France was there 2 weeks later. Like, it was just awesome. Yeah,
that is amazing.
Tell us.
Mont Ventoux with bags on the bike.
With bags on the bike.
Yeah. So just for someone who's been over there, I was like dumping water out so I didn't have to carry it any further, and I had no bags. It was just my butt, So I think that's just what a great visual, and to lean into hard, It's incredible. Yeah. If you don't mind, I'm just curious for you to just mention this. Even as you got started and you got going and started to document, how the trip was going, did you look back? Did you look at Strava almost as of like, hey, I got a long ways to go, but look what I've done. Like, and how did it reinforce the mission or the, the objective of where you were going?
Yeah. I mean, it was, I love to look back at Strava and like see, each day how like it went together. And there were some apps I used that like put all my Strava rides together so I could like track my progress in one continuous line. And I really liked to check that. And it was also just nice to see like, well, I have been able to do this for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Like I can do this indefinitely, really. I'm going at a pace where I know I can sustain it. And yeah, I've been able to do it before. Why not keep doing it? So that was definitely, not really a motivator so much as just like a confidence booster.
Yeah. I love the principle behind it, right? And the reason that I ask that is because, I'm 49 years old. I still keep a business journal, a daily journal. I use Strava. I use a number of apps, and it's not necessarily because I geek out on data per se, but I geek out on what data does to me. And data to me is going back and looking at, and I get a dopamine drip.
Yep.
That reminds me, I did that. I did that hard thing, which means I know I can do it again. I have proof of my capability to do it again.
Totally.
So how are you doing that? I mean, were you carrying a battery? of tracking all this stuff.
Yeah.
And how do you make sure that continues? I mean, plug in, recharge.
Yeah, so I camped through Europe. I camped most of the time just to save money because I was, going off my own funds. But every like third or fourth night, I would stay in like an actual hotel, or I have some friends out there, so I would stay with them, and then I could plug in my stuff and use like a power bank. So I was able to keep that up. But a decision I did make was I didn't have heart rate, I didn't have power, things that I normally have back home, just because I didn't want to worry. Like if I see, my power and it's like a little lower than what I know I can do, then I'll go harder than like what my body feels. And that's great when I'm just going on like a 2-hour ride, around town and I need a reason to push myself. But I decided I didn't really need that. I just wanted to listen to my body and to just feel it out and have the map. The map is what I really wanted to have, so that was my main priority there.
That's cool.
That is almost verbatim of what Keegan Swenson said.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Like, truly, I think the mental aspect of that is so important. Like talking about data of like what I can do, and then in the moment saying, what is my body telling me right now?
Yep.
Instead of almost like not playing a trick on yourself, but essentially like saying, I'm feeling this today. I'm going to do what I know.
Yeah.
And I think that's so real. I think that's incredibly.
Yeah, it's huge to be just listen to the body and do that thing. Take us to some moments. Hardest moment. Do you have a day where you're just like, maybe loneliness? I mean, I have felt what it feels like to ride loaded you hard for 206 miles.
It's tough.
It's hard. It's really hard. But then there are other moments in life where I would rather go ride hard for 206 miles than to be alone in the suffer. I mean, loaded you was fun. And it was the hardest. It was hard.
Yeah.
But it was fun because we did it with people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're alone. I mean, you were out there grinding alone, weren't you? A lot, like the majority of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So take us to some of those points where just it was tough mentally.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming into Central Asia in particular, I had to take a ferry across the Caspian Sea to avoid some, specific countries. And so I came off in Kazakhstan and it's just desolate. There is nothing there. It's really windy. There's like a few camels, maybe that's about it. And it was like that through Uzbekistan. It was probably about 500 miles of just nothing. And I did meet some really nice people there. There are people that live there, believe it or not, but that was pretty challenging. There were days when I wouldn't go through a town for 200 miles. And so during that time, I just decided to get up early, and I still to this day, it's the longest ride I ever did. I did a 215-mile ride. I've done a few double centuries before, but I just decided to push through it. There's nothing to see. I might as well just ride, 12 hours, 13 hours and just get it out of the way. But it was a kind of hard time because at the same time, there's a lot of stuff going on back home in the U.S. and, that's on my mind. And I'm by myself. I don't really have anybody to talk about things with. And yeah, so sometimes it's kind of hard to be that introspective and to have nothing to really distract you because there's nothing going on. So that was definitely tricky. But then I started to get into, civilization again, started to see some of the Silk Road cities in Uzbekistan and, call with my family back home and just kind of talk and visit all these cool places. And so it was easier to get back into the rhythm of things. But yeah, that was definitely a challenging moment on the ride, about halfway through.
Yeah. In that moment when you were thinking family and you mentioned things going on back home, was there a moment of FOMO, kind of like, what am I doing? I'm here alone, even though it's an adventure, still there's, I don't know, did that set in?
There's a little bit of what's the point? I don't have to be doing this. I was kind of single-minded to an extent while I was on the trip. This is my goal. This is what I'm doing. And so, yeah, I was like, maybe I would want to be back home for some of these things. But then I realized if I was back home, I would still be stressed out, and I'd be wishing I was doing this right now. So I might as well enjoy it. Like, this is a best case scenario for me. This is what I've always wanted to be doing, or not always, but recently what I've been wanting to be doing, and it's what I would be wanting to do anyway. So I might as well enjoy it while I'm here, and that helped as well.
There's so much wisdom what you just described. The character moments in my life when I look back, there are those moments where, and GT started with this, just about self-actualization, or what was your positive self-talk in those moments to really think, even though there is stuff going on back home, if I were back home, I probably would be dreaming about being exactly where I am.
Totally, yeah.
I would be wanting to do the thing I'm doing, and talk yourself back into that.
And if you don't realize that, then it's really a lose-lose situation, because you'll never be happy no matter where you're at. So,
wow.
There's a quote I love from Jim Harbaugh that's like, he's a coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, and he says, "Who has it better than us?" Yeah. Like, whether that's true or not, who has it better than us? Like, being in Uzbekistan, there's nothing out here, and you're just like, who has it better than me right now?
Yeah.
Like, you can't, it feels like you're on the moon.
Totally.
You're alone, and you're like, who has it better than me? I get to sleep in a tent, wake up at 4 a.m, and ride my bike for 12 hours. Like, there's a certain mind that takes that. It's another that, like, enjoys a little bit of that. And I think it shows your mental fortitude. It also shows that, I mean, you are extremely special, I think, in your motivation and whatnot. You're not, like, incredibly, I would say you're not a pro cyclist at this point, not to, like, throw any disrespect, but, like, in a sense, you are just a normal kid, that anybody can do this. You have incredible talent, you have incredible motivation, but it wasn't like I wake up tomorrow and I do this. Yeah. It's taken so much effort from you. It's incredibly motivating for me. It's like, I want to run through a brick wall because Haken can do this. Like, that is cool.
And that's what I've been telling people is, like, I really do think anybody could do something like this. Maybe not this exactly. But yeah, I'm not, I wasn't winning any, mountain bike races. I mean, I was okay, but really the only thing that, like, would set me apart in doing something like this is the motivation to actually do it. Like, I actually enjoy it and I want to be doing it. And yeah, it's mostly just the mindset of it, because there's not really a way to train for something like this. You're not going to be able to do it. You kind of just have to start and ride yourself into shape.
Yeah, I actually was going to ask you that question. I mean, was that the strategy?
Oh, yeah,
of
totally.
Just, hey, let's just get started and, we'll ride ourselves into shape?
Yeah, I mean, I had a base level of fitness. I ride, a decent amount just as it is. But, yeah, I really do think anybody could start. And maybe your pace would be different than other people. Like, there will be variations in that. But eventually you will be able to ride yourself into shape at a certain point, and you'll reach an equilibrium, and you can keep doing that forever.
Did you start to see that during the ride, where you would just think, wow, I'm, like, getting really strong at this, or, the bike isn't as heavy as it used to be, or, oh my word, I look down and all of a sudden I see 3 veins instead of 1 in my leg, I mean, I can't imagine your legs,
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably, you could be a leg model now, but were there moments that way where you saw your own progress and was like, hey, I'm doing this?
I mean, definitely. Like, even just the mindset change I noticed, like, thinking about doing a 70-mile ride, coming into Granada in Spain. That was maybe my 5th day. I was like, 75-mile ride. This is basically a rest day, because I've been doing, 110 miles. And so, whereas even the month before, a 75-mile ride, like, that was a proper ride, that's 3-4 hours, more 4 hours. But yeah, your mindset changes based on what you have been doing. When I was doing centuries every day, that was just normal. Anything less than that felt like, a shorter day. So it's
give us a couple of those metrics, if you don't mind. Just how many centuries did you do in a row, in terms of your totals? And And what were what was in hours? I mean, obviously Vert is going to change that, but what kind of hours would you try to do, or miles, or what kind of goals did you set for yourself that way?
Yeah, so I actually did count up the number of centuries I did. I think the most I did in a row was like 6, but I think I got up to almost 10 with the exception of like one day in the middle. But so I rode for 134 days out of 168. And out of those 134 days, I rode a century 88 of those days. And I averaged 104 miles a day total. So there was some variation, like some days would be more than 100, sometimes a little less.
Total bike weight. I'm curious, like as you say that, I'm like, what?
Yeah, well, so I actually know it pretty well because I would fly with my bike in the box and I would put all my bags in the box with it. So it fit in the normal checked bag restrictions, which is 23 kilograms, about 50 pounds. So all of my weight was about 50 pounds, bike, bags, everything.
Wow.
Yeah, and I would do about 6, 7, or 8 hours a day, depending. It would be a shorter day if it was under 6 normally.
Yeah. And what does that routine look like? I mean, do you have an alarm set every day? You know, are you putting on T Swift at 8 a.m., eating a bar at 10 a.m.? You know what I mean? Was there a routine you tried to follow?
There kind of was more just like a pattern, and it would shift over time. As the sun, it was interesting because I was always riding east pretty much. So the days were always getting shorter on me because of the direction I was traveling. But especially when I was camping, I would just wake up with the sun. It normally gets too warm to sleep after a certain point anyway. So that was a nice natural alarm clock. But I will say, as I got into Asia and the hotels were like $5-10 a night, and I was just staying in those all the time because it's hard to justify sleeping outside when they're that cheap. It was harder to get up in the morning because, you're in a bed, it's more comfortable, there's AC, and, some of those days I would start maybe like 9 or 10 a.m., maybe a little later. And, I kind of regretted that sometimes because then I would be riding, a little bit into the night in the evening. But yeah, my routine shifted over time, and I kind of just went with the flow. I didn't know. I rarely planned ahead more than a few days. And even when I did that, I'd be like, okay, I want to be here by this day. But in between, I didn't know where I was sleeping those nights. I would just be like, find a restaurant and then I'll find a place to camp wherever. I'll just see how far I get today. And so that flexibility was really nice.
That's crazy.
That really is wild.
Sorry.
That's the beauty of camping.
Yeah,
sure.
Heck yeah. I think that's awesome. When you look back, you can jump up if you want, go for it. In those days, in terms of planning, was just water and food kind of paramount? Well, you water, food, weather. I mean, it's really pretty basic, right? In terms of just survival.
Totally. I got actually really lucky with the weather. I could probably count the number of times I got rained on one hand until China, which was 10,000 miles in. So I got pretty fortunate with that, which was good because I threw away my rain fly to save weight, which was probably not the best idea. But I was pretty lucky with the rain. But yeah, with food and water, I mean, I really just did center, even sometimes my roots around that. Be like through Europe, I'd be okay. This is where the grocery stores are. I'll go there, get water, get food, and then later on, it just didn't really matter because the maps weren't particularly helpful. So I was like, okay, I'll hopefully find something here.
Yeah, that's cool. Were you carrying other nutrition, like cycling nutrition, bars, gels, any of that stuff, or was it, hey, I'm getting to the next place that has beans and rice?
I occasionally, I would actually see some cyclists that would gift me some gels and stuff like that, but that was pretty rare. Most of the time I was just living off of candy and cookies for the most part. That was my cycling food. And when I stopped, I would eat a real meal. And I tried to have at least 1 or 2 real meals per day. because, I need a little nutrition as well.
Yeah. Take us to a standout moment, something that was really meaningful to you, whether the location or the experience or someone that you met was, one of your, biker angels, from the other side that helped you. I mean, is there anything that kind of sticks out that way?
Yeah, so I'll go back to China probably, city of Chongqing, which is in kind of the center south of the country. And it's a massive city. There's like 30 million people. It's huge. And I have a friend from Texas who had done a similar trip a couple years ago I think he went from Spain to Singapore. And he knew a guy there. And he's like, hey, I noticed you're in Chongqing. I have this friend, if you want to reach out to him and like see if he's available to go hang out. And so I did. I reached out to him. He took me out to eat Sichuan hot pot, which is like a, very local, very famous dish. And then I ended up going to his birthday party in his apartment with his whole family later that night. And so it's just crazy things like that. And that happened more time. Like I went to so many birthday parties. You'd be shocked. You'd be shocked.
Oh.
Just meeting with locals. I stayed in random people's houses on more than a few occasions, just because, I guess I looked really sad and lonely, and they were like, "Hey, you can come stay with me."
Yeah.
And so that's something that you really can't get if you're not by yourself and on a bike and in places where there aren't tourists. And so I really enjoyed that, to get like a really full view of the culture, like being in somebody's house. That's crazy intimate, and like you don't get that on a vacation somewhere, know?
What did you learn about people?
Yeah, I mean, my main takeaway, like, people just really are kind. Like, people are just naturally kind. I could count the number of like, less kind interactions, maybe 2 hands over the course of 6 months, which is crazy. People were just always super kind. And, some places were maybe more friendly than others in like their demeanor, but there was never a place where I was worried, like, if something goes wrong, nobody's going to be willing to help me. There was always people that were willing to help. And yeah. I mean, I feel like I have a pretty decent sample size at this point, and that's my main takeaway.
I bet you do.
Talk about that for a second. Just, I mean, through your series, you find a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like talk about some of those relationships. Like your friend, I mean, obviously you kind of talked about the Woodlands connection to Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
You interact with a foreign exchange student that you've had.
Yeah.
You interact with like some long lost family at one point, and then talk about some of the special people that you interacted with along the way.
Yeah, so I did spend my junior year of high school in Thailand, in northern Thailand, on an exchange program. And so I made a bunch of friends in Germany and Switzerland through that. And it was really nice to be able to reconnect with them. Through Europe, though, one of the interesting things is it was kind of harder to connect with locals just because they see tourists all the time and bikepackers. And like, I was really nothing special, which, that's not an issue, but it's harder to make connections when people just aren't really that interested in you. But as soon as I got to Turkey, that was where things really started to change. And like, people would just come up to me and ask like, "Oh, where are you from? What are you doing here?" Like, just so friendly. And yeah, from then on, just people were always super interested. And, I just always tried to, even when I wasn't, in a super great mood, I was always looking to make a connection, always willing to do that. And then I also had the chance to go back through my old host town in Thailand and stay with my old host family and go back to my old host school, meet all my friends there and stuff. And that was a really kind of trippy experience, to be honest, because throughout the entire trip, I mean, before this trip, I had never left North America except to go to Thailand. That was the only other country I'd been to. And it was really weird to be in an unfamiliar environment, like exclusively for 4.5 months, and then to see it slowly morph into something that was more familiar. Like when I entered China, it was like, oh, these things are reminding me of Thailand. And as I got to like Vietnam, I was like, oh, this is really similar. In Laos, the Lao language is pretty similar to Thai, so I could actually start to understand people and like talk to people in their language. And then when I crossed the border, I was in like my host province, and it was just crazy to like be at almost a second home, to be in a place that was so familiar, but also like put into context because I had seen the area around it. Because I didn't really get that the first time. When I just flew in, you know, it's this random new place, but I didn't really get to see, you know, the cultural and regional context of it. So that was cool.
That's awesome. People,
Yeah.
right? Just such a key part. It sounds like people were one of the difference makers, just who you met.
Totally.
You know, that you survived based on meeting people and interacting with people.
Yeah, it kept me going, you know, to feel welcome in almost every place where I was at, you know. You know, people were happy to have me there. You know, the amount of times they're like, "Oh, you're my guest in my country. Like, thank you for coming." And yeah, to be like an American as well, and to like, you know, a lot of these people had never even met an American. And so it was kind of cool to be able to represent that for other people as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's such a grassroots level, like you said. I mean, you know, if people are meeting Americans, it's probably in, you know, touristy parts of these countries and big cities. And you're literally riding a bike through the middle of outback Nebraska, but in their version of Turkey, or
it's like if somebody from, I don't know, India was in the middle of Nebraska. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Like, what are you doing here? Yeah.
Is there a moment that you maybe can take us to where, I don't know, it could be a sunset or a sunrise, or it could be, you know, just in a cool place where you just think, this is incredible. This is an incredible planet that we live on.
Yeah. So many places in China, honestly. It's such a diverse country. I started out in some, you know, they're the outskirts of the Himalayas, basically, and they're still proper mountains. I mean, they put the Wasatch to shame for sure. Just crazy riding through snow. Well, not in the snow, but like there's snow around me. And then 3 days later, I was next to like the biggest sand dunes I've ever seen in my life, just crazy tall. And then going through farms, and then going through like these awesome karst landscapes with like limestone cliffs all over the place, just super diverse. And on the Vietnam border, there was just the most beautiful waterfall I've ever seen in my life. I can't remember what it's called, but it's amazing. And so just to see like that amount of diversity in one country that most people don't even really think about. And I didn't even go to the famous parts of China. Like I didn't go to Beijing or Shanghai or anything like that. And just to see all of those different things, that was really like, wow, what are we missing out on, you know?
Yeah.
Because I didn't even know about this before.
What role, I'm just curious, you know, and this could take it, you know, a number of different directions, but is there a life lesson or a takeaway that you know, becomes the source of your why going forward? I mean, talked a little bit about your why of why you did it, but you know, what now, and how did that give maybe some frame or context to what's your next why?
Yeah, I mean, I've had, last night somebody asked me, like, what advice would you give yourself before you went on this trip? And I just said, you know, chill out about things. Like, it'll work out. It may not be the way that you, like, imagined it would. You know, there were several border crossings that I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. I had to take a train across one because it was closed, and like I couldn't find tickets for it. And I was like, how am I going to make this work? Like I might be trapped here for weeks, because I had talked to people who had literally had that happen. Or like the ferry I took across the Caspian Sea. I know people that had to wait, you know, 3 days for the exact same boat I was on, and I got on within 2 hours. And that was mostly just luck. But like, things always work out in my experience. I mean, obviously they don't always work out, but it's just not worth really worrying about. You give it your best effort and, you know, things will work out eventually. And so it's nice to just chill out. Just let things do what they will. Give it your best effort and see what happens.
There's a line that I love. It's a fake movie, but I love the movie The Martian. And then he says right at the end, he's like, they have 1,000 questions. And he's like, if you think about like you're trapped on a desert planet, you're trapped in Europe, you're trying to get to Singapore.
Yeah.
You solve one problem after the next, and then you get to come home. Or in this case, you solve one problem after the next, and you get to Singapore. You get to your goal. It doesn't make any sense to worry about to save the brain power, to save your legs, save whatever. It doesn't help you to worry about every single thing that could go wrong. Just be prepared for the one thing that goes wrong, and be prepared to roll with the punches. And I think that's what you did. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, totally. And talking to my parents, that was something that they said a lot of people were saying to them when I left. They're like, how could you let him do this? Like all these things that could happen. And they're like, I mean, they could, but like, you know, think about all the things he would miss out on if he didn't do it. You know, if you let fear make the decisions for you, you're going to miss out on a lot of really cool things.
Yeah, I mean, you get hit by a bus in Kaysville, right? I mean,
exactly. Well, no, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting thing to kind of frame that way. But when you go to the point, you know, in the journey where you think, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get to Singapore, I'm going to achieve what I set out to do. How does that start to feel and take us there and then, you know, take us through to the finish?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I was able to navigate like those kind of crazy border crossings in Central Asia, I was like, okay, the logistical challenges are mostly done. And then I got to China. They let me in. I was like, are they going to let me in? I have the visa and everything, but you never know. And I just didn't really know what to expect at all. But spent a month in China, got to Vietnam. I was like, well, I'm basically home free now. I mean, I still had a month left, but, you know, it's a place that's familiar to me. And so
I'm basically home free. I just need to, you know, push 100 miles a day.
It's all relative, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, once I got to that point, I knew I was going to be able to do it. And I was also fortunate enough to have my parents come out in southern Thailand, and my dad actually rode with me the rest of the way from southern Thailand through Malaysia and into Singapore. And my mom rode for one of those days as well. And so I knew I just had to get to that point, and then, you know, it'd be more of kind of like a vacation feeling. It's different when you're, you know, with your family. But that was another thing that was really interesting that I realized was, like, as soon as I was with my parents, my problem solving, not necessarily abilities, but like my motivation to solve problems on my own just kind of went out the drain. I was like, oh, my bike's broken. Why don't you like figure that out? And so that was something that I realized as well, is you kind of have to, if you're going to grow and if you're going to learn how to do things, sometimes you just got to figure it out on your own. If you have other people that are willing to help you, and don't get me wrong, like that's great. It's always nice to have help. And I called my parents, you know, when I had issues and I needed help during the trip as well. But I grew so much just by being on my own, and I wouldn't have, even if I just had, you know, a Davis buddy with me on the whole trip, I wouldn't have learned as much or grown as much as a person if I had that.
Yeah. Do you like being alone?
I don't mind it.
I mean, I know that that's kind of an interesting, you know, thing to think through, but a lot of people don't like being alone with their own thoughts. And, and they've not really built a relationship with themselves, which is a deeper topic. But in the world today where you can have a phone as your best friend, scrolling all the time, you can be busy doing things a lot and be incredibly alone and isolated.
Yeah. I mean, that was something that going into it, I was also worried about. I was like, what do I even do? I mean, I'm writing, you know, 7 hours a day, but that still leaves a lot of time not on the bike and not sleeping. So what am I even going to do? How am I going to fill my time? And honestly, I probably did spend too much time on my phone just because what else am I going to do? You know, it's right there. And I kind of wish I had spent less time. But I also did try to make an effort to make connections with the people that were there. You know, not always going up and like starting random conversations with people, but sometimes that. And a lot of the time they would come up to me, and it was good to just like put the phone down, be in the moment. I'm here. Probably not ever going to be here again. Might as well, you know, make these connections.
Did that funny feel? I always got a funny feeling traveling some parts of the world where I didn't speak the language, and it's like hey, we're gonna have to communicate, and Google Translate is only gonna get us so far.
Right.
That funny feeling of like, oh crap. Like, did that ever go away for you? Like when you're, I mean, Spain, France, Austria, decent amount of English
For sure.
that you can kind of get by with.
Yeah.
Uzbekistan, getting into like deeper Asia.
Yeah.
English is pretty much a non-starter at that point. You have some Thai to kind of fall back on if need be, in some of those like kind of close to Thailand and stuff. Did that feeling of like, I gotta ask for a bike pump in this language I have no idea, or like I have to ask for a place to like food, like did that ever go away? Did that, not embarrassment, but like the cold open you have to overcome every time, did that go away for you?
Honestly, I feel like it was easier to cold open people because I would just put it in Google Translate and be like, sorry. Like,
Yeah.
let the phone do the talking. But yeah, it was definitely harder to make connections using only like Google Translate. You know, there's a disconnect there for sure. But you'd actually be surprised how many people can speak English and which countries would be good. Like Tajikistan, crazy amount of English. I spent an evening with a bunch of workers from they were having like a work party, and they worked at like a fish canning factory or something like that. And they all spoke perfect English, and like it's not like they're in some business field where they need to do it. They just all spoke really good English. And so it was definitely easier to connect with people who were able to do that. But it was something that I just adapted to. It was really weird coming back and being able to understand, you know, random conversations from strangers. Like I wasn't used to that anymore. And so, yeah, you can learn ways to effectively communicate with Google Translate and make connections. I have plenty of funny, you know, awesome experiences just over Google Translate, great conversations. So it does happen.
Yeah. Speaking of being by yourself, there's got to be a dialogue with some inner demons, obviously. Sometimes you're kind of sick of talking to yourself or talking to your inner demons, so to speak. Were you listening to music at all? Podcast? Like, what were you doing on the bike to fill time?
Yeah, I mostly, I did a little bit of music, but mostly podcasts I would do. And that was good, but every once in a while, I would just take a day and I would decide I'm not going to listen to anything all day. I'm just going to be in my thoughts, because sometimes it was like I was distracting myself maybe a little too much, you know, just like always listening to a podcast on the bike. But yeah, those days when I took it off, it was actually crazy, because after a while you just start thinking and just letting your mind wander. You realize a lot of kind of interesting things about yourself. And yeah, I enjoyed those days for sure.
Tom can probably attest to this, being on the bike sometimes. I go to the gym sometimes. I should preface that by saying I go to the gym every day. Sometimes I go to the gym and forget, ADHD or not, to put my headphones in.
Yeah.
I just think like it's my shower time. Some people have amazing, like mind-blowing thoughts in the shower. The gym is that way for me. If sometimes I don't, I just talk to myself, and you realize stuff about yourself, or you're going throughout your day or throughout your week.
Yeah.
If I could say anything to anybody that listens to this, spend time, whether it's your inner demons or not. Maybe it's your inner angels that are giving you amazing ideas. Like Haken said, spend time with your thoughts. It's an incredibly important skill that I think distraction a lot of times is easy.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't like the funny feeling that happens, or the uncomfortable feeling when you have to deal with your own thoughts. I think it is incredibly important for positive mental health, one, to know how you talk to yourself, and two, it builds mental fortitude that you can do things, you can do hard things.
Yeah.
100%.
And I feel like it's almost a lost art at this point, because I mean, even just for me, you get into the habit of just always listening to something, and it's hard to turn that off. It had to be a conscious decision that I made, and I don't know if it's always been like that. I think that's maybe more of a recent phenomena. So,
Looking back on it, were there, speaking of self-talk or just, the time with your thoughts, is there takeaways that you have now that you learned about yourself? Do you know yourself better today than prior?
Yeah, I think so for sure. Like I said with problem solving, it's kind of funny when things would go wrong. I'd be frustrated, but I had nobody to really vent that frustration to, which was almost nice. I could just put my head down, like, it's not going to do me any good to complain. Like, I already know it sucks. I don't need to tell myself it more. And so that was something I realized, like when I was riding with my dad in Malaysia, and that's when it started raining a lot. Like, I didn't have any issues with rain until my parents came, and then it was raining like crazy. And I would complain about it a lot to my dad, and he even asked me, he's like, so what do you do when I'm not here? Like, what do you, how do you handle these kinds of things? And I was like, I think I feel the same way. It's just when I'm by myself, I can learn to put my head down. And after he kind of pointed that out to me, I feel like I tried to take the mentality I had when I was by myself to be with other people, because it's not like it does much better when you're with other people to complain either. It's just easier. So just learning that I could just get over stuff and put my head down and problem solve. That was a good skill to learn that I didn't know I had.
Yeah, when you described earlier about, your advice, what advice would you give to yourself? And you said, chill out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that really, even now hearing you say this, a little more context to just how you dealt with problem solving, just work through it.
Yep.
It doesn't really do any good to just complain or sit in it or kind of,
Yeah.
Woe is me type of a thing. How did the finish line go?
It was kind of anticlimactic, to be honest. we had a hotel in Singapore, so we rode to the hotel. We got some lunch. My dad showered, and then I just kept all the bikes or all my bags on my bike and stayed dressed so that we could go to Marina Bay, which is the iconic, Singapore place, and take some pictures and stuff. And then we did that, and I was riding back to the hotel. It was 3 miles, and it just poured on me the entire way. I was like, okay, great. This is how it ends.
How serendipitous.
Yeah. And then my parents flew back the next morning, but my flight wasn't for another 4 days. So I just kind of hung around Singapore, took the ferry to Indonesia, kept riding a little bit because I was, in a riding mode. What else was I going to do? I had a bike in a cool place. Might as well ride around. Yeah, a little anticlimactic, but it was never about the destination. It was always about the journey. So I was kind of expecting that.
That's awesome. Was there any sort of celebratory dinner?
Well, it was Thanksgiving when I finished, actually. We went to a food court, I think. My dad and my grandpa was there as well, and they both had giant crabs. I think that was it. I was feeling really hungry, and crab didn't have enough, so I just had a bunch of rice and stuff. Nothing too special, but I'm easily pleased when it comes to food, so it's all right.
That's awesome.
What's the best dish on your whole thing that you had?
Best dish? China had some good food, for sure. What they can do with noodles is crazy. It's really good stuff. I also love Thai food, but I'm kind of biased because I lived there for so long. I don't know. There's good food everywhere. Turkey had amazing food. It's hard to pick just one. There's a few recipes that I want to try to recreate back home, though, for sure.
When you do, we want an invite to that.
For sure.
Yeah, we're Thai food fans,
Oh, so good.
Yeah, anything authentic. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Other takeaways, anything that you would freestyle where you just think this is something I learned or really important to me, or I wish people would think about this, more.
I think that if you have the opportunity and the means to go see other parts of the world, I totally recommend doing that. And not just like Europe. Don't get me wrong, Europe's great. There's tons of awesome things to see. I'll be back. But going to places where people don't normally go, if you're willing to have a mindset of like just going with the flow and seeing what happens, that's when my coolest experiences was just being willing to do that. And just being flexible. I think that was my biggest takeaway. Like, not planning it, like I said, was an asset, I think. And, it probably would have been better to plan a little bit more in some areas, but just being willing to go with the flow, not over plan things, because that was how I met awesome people, was when I had no plan for where I was going to sleep that night, what I was going to do.
Shout out some cool people that helped you along the way.
We got Andrew Mortensen. He was the guy who rode from Spain to Singapore 2023. I called him before I did the trip to like see if it was even feasible for me, get some advice on gear and stuff. So great dude. Liam Garner, he's on Instagram. He rode from Alaska to Argentina when he was 18, and he's also riding from Portugal to Singapore now. I spent a few days with him in Sarajevo. Awesome guy. And yeah, just all the people along the way. So many people. I still get texts from random people in Uzbekistan and Thailand, Vietnam, just all the time. Like, hey, how are you doing? Where are you at now? So, just all the friendly people along the way.
That's so cool. Have those connections forever. Yeah. Your sense of curiosity is amazing to me. And it's odd to say that, I mean, you're an adventurer and cyclist and all these things, but your curiosity is such a gift, that will serve you so many ways. How can people find you? What are you at on Instagram?
Yeah, I am at Haken.Anderson, SON, and that's where I'm at on Instagram. And then on TikTok, I believe it's Haken Anderson 0 is my handle. I post the same stuff on both, though, so you're not missing too much if you're only on one.
The western leg of the journey, the Western Asia, and then the rest of the...
That's coming.
Yeah,
I have the footage. Right now, I'm still in Bosnia, according to my my vlogs, but I have all the footage. I'll get to it eventually, I promise.
It's coming, as you've heard in this episode. Some of the best stuff is going to come from those episodes. So
Definitely.
Stay tuned to that and go check out Haken's stuff.
Haken, what was the total miles?
So 14,000 miles, give or take. I think when I finished in Singapore, it was like, it actually kind of annoyed me. It was 13,995. But then I spent a few days riding around. So it's over 14,000. I don't know the exact total.
Are you hatching, speaking of curiosity, another adventure?
I mean, I would love to ride across the U.S. That's probably the next realistic goal for me, because I don't know where I'll be able to find another spare 6 months lying around.
Yeah.
But if I am, on my bucket list is, Alaska to Argentina. It seems like the other rite of passage for people that have done similar things. So maybe one day. Don't have any immediate plans for that. In the meantime, I got to get life going. This was my my little break. So,
what would you say is your daily ritual mantra? Is there something that you said to yourself consistently, daily in the hard moments that you just kind of caught on to that became, this is my theme?
I don't know about any like specific wording, but like the thought of, this is what I want to be doing. Like, this is just crazy that I'm able to do this. And, a lot of people talk about like dreams that they want to achieve, and I'm actually like trying to do something. And so, just enjoy every moment, because it's not going to last forever, but you might as well enjoy it while it lasts.
You've had your daily dose.